They had posted images of my abuser with a Happy Women's Day.
Welcome back to Lustcast. This week I'm joined by Leah Gotti.
Hi.
Leah, this is the first time we've met and we haven't really spoke before this podcast. So I think the best way of doing an introduction is to just have you tell us what you've been doing on your Twitter, because it was really inspiring.
Thank you. So this week on Women's Day, I saw a few posts made by some major influencers in the adult world in America and pretty much all over the world, where they had posted images of my abuser with a Happy Women's Day. And I was just flabbergasted at the fact that people were being told Happy Women's Day with men who absolutely have no respect, in my opinion, for women or in any regard for safety. So I decided to create a thread where I was encouraging people to post about any mistreatment they had suffered in the industry, whether that being from agents, production, talent, anything really. And at first, nobody was really interacting with my thread. And so I was like, okay, let me just acknowledge how much courage it actually takes to speak on these kinds of things. Because for myself, it did take me quite a long time before I actually vocalized, almost 5 years, before I vocalized to people like, hey, this is wrong. We should not be doing this. And so I was like, okay, people reach out to me and I'll post on behalf of you. So it could be anonymous. And as soon as I said that, I was getting message after message after message after message with the most intense claims of abuse and just sickening to the stomach of some of the things that I was reading, and knowing the names that was being named to me, having so much power and influence in this world that we are, and big companies who I would think would, stop that, hearing from girls saying that they weren't, was very eye-opening and shocking. So I think I've just been trying to expose it in hopes that when the mass speaks, that change could come, right? I know that I'm only one person, and it was a lot for me to take on, to be honest, like you would know. And I have been getting a lot of slack from that also, as you would know. So it's like, I know what I'm doing. Hopefully we'll be able to make some kind of change. Could also be naive to think that people would really make the change, because we know from experience that people have spoke out before and there hasn't been anything changed.
Do you think that's fair? Because I guess before I started doing this, I started speaking out in December, and before I started it, I always used to blame European models for being, weak or cowardly. I guess victim blaming, really. And my view was that American models are brave and strong and more feminist. And my feeling was that the American industry had changed. And now I'm learning that maybe everything I thought was completely wrong. So
so I think you might be onto something. I think that there was a little bit of change. Some companies have made those leaps and bounds and made the changes. You can name some, like Jackie St. James said on Molestica House, Brazzers. We've got Twisties. We've got independent photographers who used to shoot for some of those big companies who have now parted, and they only do work for the models themselves. Like, you can hire them, like Dean Capture and Legend and Will Dynamite. Those people, they listened, right? They did what we've asked. They've given liaison. They've given the safety. They listen. They're very attentive. They don't do the kill fees if someone's sick, and all those little nasty things that go on. However, there are companies who continue to work with these people because they like that. They like having those big, giant, scary men next to the tiny little dainty girls, right? Or having those really mean ladies like that are very violent in lesbian sex with tiny little delicate girls, you know, like finger blasting them to the point of bleeding and things like that. And there are directors and there are companies whose sites, like, that's what they run off of. They run off of fear a little bit, you know? That's kind of who I feel like they're marketing to a bit. I know that I called out a giant company that I've worked with, and they've since then responded to me and allowed me to know that they're no longer going to work with people that I've said, you know, but they still have inventories that they're going to have to continue to work through, right? So that's what's scary, because it's the girls that are new who are unaware of the history, right? Like myself. Exactly. Whenever I came into the industry, I had no idea that my abuser had abused people before, right? Till it started happening to me. And then I was like, what the fuck? And started doing my own research. And, you know, everybody started telling me stuff, you know, that they had heard. And that's what it is. When you see someone on one of the sites that maybe, like when you're a new girl and you want to be popping in the industry, you want to get followers, you want to make money, you want to be able to do the things, you want to be the it girl, you're going to shoot with who those it companies are shooting with. You're going to be DMing them. You're going to basically be like, I'll shoot with you for free, for trade, just so I can say I had sex with so-and-so, you know, just so I can get some of your followers. That's the dangerous part. That's why I feel like the cycle has never ended, right? Because those people who do have the power to say, hey, no, we know because we've seen people talk about this, can't do that. If they weren't working with them, then there would be no longer the cycle of the new girls continuing to keep these people relevant. Because it's not anybody in the industry that's like has mega names that are continuously working with these people who have the accusations. It's always that new girl, that new fresh face, you know, and the agent sending them to that person to keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah. My impression, at least in Europe, has always been that the predators, they know who they can abuse, and they do target the new girls. Like, they will treat an established girl completely differently to how they will treat a new girl.
Absolutely.
And it's vile when you think about it.
So back to what you were saying about how you were doing like some victim blaming in back in the day, right? I think a lot of people do that, right? Because just social things in normal civilization, how people view girls or men who do sex work is completely different. Almost the man is like idolized, like he's a man's man, you know? But that girl, she's maybe like dirty, you know, she's stupid, she's this, she's that. And somehow I feel some of these people who have been accused of abuse, in my opinion, have very like role issues, right? That they're never going to give the female that power to say, this is what I want. You know how you were saying that girls in America are strong. We have the feminists. We have this. But unfortunately, most of the girls who are in this industry are not that strong, to be honest, when they get in. It's like when we're getting in and we start to get the fame, we start to get the power, then you start to reclaim who you are, and then you start to feel like you can say something. But at the beginning, you're just trying to do whatever everybody wants so that you can make it to the top. Like, you'll play the role, you keep your mouth shut, you don't cause any problems, you get in, you get out, and that's it. Like, for example, there's a few girls that I know just the other day that were on set with a huge company. They're doing their pretty girls, so they're fully naked. The photographer calls his friends at the golf course, and all like about a lot of men on the phone, turns it, shows the girls, and the guys are like doing all kinds of disgusting things. But the girls were too afraid to speak up and say, hey, like, we didn't give you permission to do that. They just wanted to get the scene over with and get paid and leave. Right? That is an assault. That is exposing. Like, she never, you know, in my opinion, I feel like you're just abusing your power as a photographer. You're abusing your power of having these girls right here and vulnerable. Like, what are they going to do? Tackle him? Take his phone? You know?
Well, this is an interesting question. I've got 2 questions for you, actually. So I'm going to have to start writing them down because you brought up so many good points. But like one of the ones is, do you think the porn industry understands consent? Because I sold my old company as being an ethical porn company. I had a female business partner, and I was very in touch with like trying to make sure that models that everything was good, you know? But I feel I only fully learned about consent about 2 months ago. It's only since I've been talking to so many victims that I realized that actually I had no understanding of consent, especially what in legal terms they call acquiescence, which is when the girl just freezes and accepts the sexual assault, and assent, which is when she's maybe lied to, pressured, or even given like drugs or alcohol in order to get consent.
Absolutely. There's fawn and freeze in trauma with PTSD. That's exactly what you're talking about, your assent and dissent. And if you're in the middle of a sex scene and you did your consent before, right? Like that's what we usually do. You have your checklist. What's your hard yeses and what's your hard no's? A lot of people don't do those. Or if they do, they don't. The directors, some of the directors are not paying attention to those. I was speaking to a director just yesterday who said, you made me realize that maybe I've had a part of this, you know, have I pressured someone into doing something that maybe they weren't okay with doing because I wanted that wow shot, you know, and then the girl just follows along with it. Like you're saying, it will like, that is always going to happen, especially when you're on camera, especially if someone said like, oh, I don't like to cut, right? Because that's been like an ongoing thing. Like, I don't want to cut. I want it to be organic, right? So that girl's going to act in her role, right? She might try to like put a barrier up, or the male, he might try to stop doing that, but the person that he's working with might continue to push that. So in order to not make it awkward, they just go along with it. And then in the end, they're left feeling like gross and hurt and causing more trauma and stuff that they have to keep compartmentalizing inside of themselves. And that's very true. Like the pressure of consent and everything like that, the boundaries, I think it's just the boundaries are not being respected. Consent, everybody knows what consent is, but everybody also is aware.
I don't think they do, because I've been speaking privately to a lot of porn producers, and over half of them say she didn't say no. She didn't go to the police. So obviously,
no, in the middle of the movie, that's them. I feel like no. I feel like that's just people turning the blind eye, because if you pay attention to what happened in the beginning, if you're following the steps to ask the boundaries in the beginning. Of course, some people don't do that, right? So then I can understand where, well, she didn't say no. But if they did ask before, if someone was okay with a cream pie, right? And they said absolutely not. And then in the middle of the scene, at the end of the scene, he's like, I'm going to come inside of you. And she goes, oh yeah, you're going to come in me? And he does. Do you think that was consent? Or do you think that she was asking him that to try and remind him, no, I don't want you to come at me. How about you say, no, actually turn around, let me come on your face, or something like that. It could be taken a lot of different ways. I just feel like only if you've been in the position, you would understand it, maybe. Maybe if you have had somebody violate your consent, then you would be able to see, oh, wait.
And let me give you an example of where I think the problem is, because Visa and MasterCard are regulating consent heavily, and the porn companies are afraid of it. That's the only reason they're taking it seriously. I think they're worried about their finances. So I found a video online of a European model, and the scene was so extreme. And I'm talking about things that I don't think it's possible to consent to. For example, she was being kicked in the breast. She was being spat at. She was suffocated with a pillow. She was doing double anal and her ass was bleeding, and they just carried on. And I forced an investigation by the payments companies, so the adult payments companies, CC Bill and Epic.
That is,
And
oh my God.
when they looked at the video, the producer showed them a clip where he said at the beginning, "Oh, well, you know, if anything's too much, just say stop." And for them, that was consensual. And that's not consent. And in this consent conversation, her agent was there, 4 guys she was expected to work with, who this was all agreed on the day, not even booked in advance. And but according to the payments companies who are regulating the consent aspect, it was consensual. But there was no point.
Yeah, that goes back to the rules of how you're supposed to run those things. You cannot ask somebody what they're okay with if there's a group of people around them who they might think will make fun of them. Like, for example, I had a girl say that when she had told someone that she didn't want to do a cream pie, they laughed when they were listening, right? So she changed her mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you're feeling pressured, you're feeling judged. Like, okay, if I say no to this, they're going to think I'm too vanilla, or maybe they're going to want to work with somebody else. Like, I just want to be that good time talent, you know? Same thing with like some of the guys, they have reached out to me and let me know that they have heard the girls say that they didn't want to have any kind of anal penetration. And then director comes to them and says like, "Hey, I want you to play with her ass. I want you to try and, you know, get it in there." And so throughout the scene, that's what's going on.
I think people that are not in the porn industry, they're going to think that this is pretty minor stuff, because I think they're going to be comparing it to when they're on a date. And let's say they go home with a girl, and most guys are going to say, "Well, the girl's at my place, you know, I start having sex with her, and, you know, either she goes along with it or she doesn't." And I think they find it hard to imagine that this is non-consensual. And I guess, like, what do you think to that, like, from like the fans' point of view?
You know, honestly, you just made me think in my head, have I ever like asked for consent in private sex? And I don't think I have. I think it just, like you said, we just do it. Like, never have I had anyone say like, "Can we do this?" Or it's more like we're going off of it. It's more like we're going off each other's sexual chemistry. But sexual chemistry is not consent in porn, because it's sex work. You know, that's the difference. There's a difference between sex and then sex work. Like, we're here to do a video. You know, of course, we need sexual chemistry. Of course, it'd be great if we could have real orgasm, if we could have this and that. But a lot, you sometimes you don't. You know, there's positions that they're telling you to do. There's very few companies who will allow the talent to just do their own thing, you know, and not step in. That's where I think that could be, maybe that would have to be a little bit more explained, that when we're going on set, most of the time you haven't met that person. Most of the time you don't know that person's background, right? So like, you just are able to see who they want you to think they are on social media, what they're allowing you to see. As for when you're on a date, you're sitting, you're having conversation, you're chilling, and then when that person decides to come home with you, that's kind of taken as consent. This person wants to be with me, right? This person wants to be intimate with me because they're coming back to my dwelling. They want to come into my space, and they want me in their space. As when we're on a set, we don't necessarily want these people in our space. We're getting paid to have these people in our space. We're here on a common goal to make money. We're not here to fall in love with each other. We're not here to be boyfriend and girlfriend after. Of course, that happens, you know. Business and the pleasure kind of starts to get all mungy. And that's when issues start to arise as well. Because then it's like, oh, well, he couldn't possibly rape her because that's her boyfriend. Or she couldn't possibly rape her because that's her girlfriend. You know, like, obviously they're into this stuff because they're doing it, you know? It's just not so not so black and white. There's lots of things that we have to look at, micro expressions, like all kinds of things. Like, if you see like someone's in a scene and they're in doggy, and maybe the person's going so hard and they're hitting that person and maybe she doesn't say stop, but maybe she puts her hand on the stomach to kind of like add a little barrier. That could be seen as a sign if you're paying attention to the micro expressions and you're not getting lost in the penetration aspect. You would see that, oh, she's uncomfortable. Let's maybe switch positions or back off a little bit. And, you know, that's where like companies like Brazzers, they have liaisons who are paying attention to those types of things. So when they see if you look a little bit uncomfortable, they'll step in for you if they feel like you aren't strong enough to step up for yourself. You know, because when you're in those situations, when you're in your character, because like I said, I don't know if I told you this, but there's like an on and off switch. We have our porn character, we have ourself, but when we're on set, sometimes we forget about ourselves because we're just trying to, you know, meet that goal. But we could damage who we are from doing those things. And that's why I think the liaisons are really important and necessary, because they have those on movie sets, right?
Yeah,
and
they do now.
If someone's with you at all times and they have your best interests at heart, someone who would be likely to find somebody vulnerable wouldn't be able to find it if they have somebody with them. You know, you'd have to be alone. You'd have to be someone who's timid, who isn't very vocal on like, or opinionated. You know, those are the girls who are too afraid to say stuff. And that's why the liaison would have to be there. Liaison has to watch. Somebody has to be paying attention to each person and really care that no one's getting damaged, you know? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. Even though we've spoke on it so many times and saying like, hey, you don't have to cancel these people, right? You don't have to cancel these people. If you want to keep working with them, that's fine. But at least provide security for people so that no one's getting hurt. So that no one is taking advantage of somebody when they're in the shower after the scene, cleaning up. You know, when everybody's taking lights down and when the makeup people are packing up and when the people are doing paperwork and then it's just the model upstairs and then the other model comes upstairs and sees, ooh, they're in the shower, nobody's around, goes in, locks the door, and then boom, something happens.
I've got a question on this because, like, do you think that the abusive males know that they're abusive? Because I often think that maybe they're thinking that they're mistaking acting for, oh, wow, this girl likes everything I do. Like, do you think it's something more innocent, or do you think it is like a deliberate abuse?
Have you ever seen the movie Nymphomaniac?
I tried to watch it, but I couldn't.
In my opinion, some of these people are really sick, right? They have sexual addiction. They have like weird fantasies in their head. And they might think that the people who are also working with them, like you said, they're getting lost in the scenes, getting lost in the acting. That could provoke some impulsive thoughts. And if someone, even males, like maybe someone had been abused when they were a child, or maybe they weren't taught how to control impulsive action, you know, and they just act on them because they have been given a place of power and their sex has been idolized. So they might not see a problem with being so aggressive. They might actually see that as just being confident. Like they might think that that person's taking them wanting them as a compliment. Like, you're so like, they could be in there. I'm just going to speak like saying like, I've had people say to me before, like if the talent comes up and they're like, I'm so horny for you. Like, I can't stop thinking about you. And then they just throw themselves on him, you know? They might think that they're doing something romantic, or they might think that they're doing something that is not bad or taboo because they have never been told like, yo, this is wrong. But they don't have that in their mind to be able to understand that they're scary or that they're intimidating the person into doing it. Or maybe like that person is just here for a business. Cause like myself, I don't have sex outside of my marriage for pleasure. I'll have sex outside of my marriage for business, and there's a big difference. I'm not coming onto set to fall in love with you. When the camera says cut, I'm not touching you. You're not touching me. Like, you know what I mean? We're going to touch each other back as soon as the camera's rolling. And as soon as the camera's off, don't touch me. Like, at all. I'm just going to chill, get my makeup retouched. We can have conversation. hey, are you okay? Is everything feeling all right? Checking in with my partner. But there are some people, when the camera cuts, they're getting a few more thrusts in, or they're getting a few more fingers in, or they're sucking on some titties, or they're like slapping ass, or like being more aggressive off camera because maybe that production doesn't let people choke anyone. So they might grab her by her neck and like think that they're turning her on and getting her into the mood. But in reality, it could be the opposite. But also it could be some people are into that. And that's why it's really hard to differentiate, because each talent has their own turn-ons and turn-offs, right? Each talent has their own kinks and their own fetishes. And a lot of people might think that all porn stars are into the same thing. And so since you're a porn star, you might be open to all things sexual. You might want to explore all things with me. There's not really anything that could be off limits because we're here doing this on camera. You know?
Yeah.
I can see both sides of like the brain, like when it's working, you know, it just has, you know, it just goes back to having to have people there to make sure that those incidents can't happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's one of the problems is that, like, and maybe this is for females as well, but obviously I'm coming at this from a guy. But when I first started doing porn, like, I'm a performer and producer. I always went in that way. There was no manual. I was lucky I had a female business partner, but I'm sure I made mistakes. And I remember when I first started, it was kind of a mindfuck, you know, you're doing something that's reserved for intimate moments with, you know, either casual or long-term partners. And you're doing it as a job. And you do think, like, was that real or was it fake? Like, it was fun. Like, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's professional. Like, most times it's professional, but sometimes lines do get crossed and you think, what the hell just happened?
Sometimes you might even say something. Like, I know I've said stuff and I'm like, what the fuck? Why did I just say that? You know? Because you're just into it. You're into the role.
I have a challenge that I always give porn stars when I meet them. I say to the girls, like, next time you're doing a porn scene, tell the guy, I love you.
No
one will say it. Everybody's terrified of saying it. It's like the ultimate taboo in sex is saying I love you during a sex scene. But it should be one of the common things that people expect in a fantasy. Is for the girl to say I love you. But it's acting. We're meant to be actors, right?
Have you ever had a custom video request where they want you to say like things like that? I get custom requests and I had to set boundaries even with those, because when you're making a video for your clients, right? That's very intimate for them. So you could be leading them on. Like, somebody might not have the capacity to understand that you're just acting, right? So like, even when I run my OnlyFans and stuff like that, I make it clear, like, I don't sext, I don't do dick ratings, I don't do anything like that because I'm not your girlfriend. But I'll make you a custom video. I'll get to know you. I'll remember your personal things and your important dates. I'll check up on you. I'll be your friend, right? But I'm never going to say anything like, I love you. I'm yours. Come inside of me. Make a baby with me. I want to be your wife. Like, I've had people say these things, like, I want you to say this. I'm like, no, I won't say that, you know? And even like on set, like if something's in the script and you're reading it and somebody's like, oh, I want you to say this pussy's yours or something like that. And maybe your partner and you have something to where, like, you don't say that because that pussy's mine, you know? You have to be able to stand up and say, that's a little too far for me. But there's not a lot of people who are going to be brave enough to say to somebody that's their boss. Because remember, when you're on set, you're often viewing your director as your boss. They're paying
I think, it's true, yeah.
You know? So there's also that, the power dynamic is kind of off. You don't know if you can say that. Especially if when you were growing up, you weren't allowed to speak up for yourself. You know, you weren't able to make choices for yourself. A lot of times people who have experienced trauma and they have like PTSD or like a personality disorder, making a simple choice like, should I have Funyuns or Doritos? It will take them 30 minutes, right? So how could they don't have it in them to be on set to be like, I can't actually do that. Can we actually do that instead? You know,
that's a really good point.
really feeling it inside really hard. They really want to say it. They really, 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 really do, but they just cannot muster up the courage to do so.
And in
And that's
psychology,
not the director's fault. Yeah.
And in psychology, I think it can be the director's fault because, like the producers I've been exposing, they plan their scenes on the day. They'll just book the girl for an interview or just for a blowjob scene, and then they try to get more from her.
So like a casting couch type of thing.
Yeah, but like you should be staging this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing is, they know this. Everybody that's ever attended a sales seminar knows that it's very hard for people to say no if you ask them a direct question. Like if I'm selling you a car and I say, do you want the car? Like you're going to try and look for reasons to say yes, because it's really hard to say no to people. And I think they know that, and they're using that as a technique to get more from the models, because like a script can be sent in advance. Everything that's going to happen in a video can be sent in advance. Okay, things can go wrong, in which case we have to like pull back and maybe do less than what we planned or change things a bit. But you shouldn't be asking people to go over their limits than what they've already agreed for the scene. Like it shouldn't be different.
We have to understand that not every person gives a fuck about people. Not every person that's came into this industry cares about people. They just caring about their pockets. And they know what their fans want because they're getting the requests from their fans. So they might be feeling pressure from their site request to have people push the boundaries so that they can continue to make their pockets grow and so forth. And, you know, that's why, like I said, like having a protocol for how sets are ran and how a model should behave, how a lighting guy should behave, how the makeup artist should behave. You know, I've been on sets where the sound crew and the light crew say inappropriate things, you know, to the talent, or maybe the director is attacking the sound guy and be like saying some inappropriate things like that, you know, makes the model feel uncomfortable. For instance, I've been on set where somebody said, I don't pay you to sit here and jack off all day. And then every time somebody went to the bathroom from that point on, I just couldn't stop thinking that they're going in there to jack off. So then I was just mad uncomfortable, right? And he didn't say that thinking that it would affect me in that way, right? But it did. It's just like knowing what's appropriate and keeping it professional, you know, because it is like sex is very, very intimate, and it's a dangerous thing to play around with.
And like you say, like my attitude towards it is that this is a job, and I don't see any other reason why normal workplace rules can't be followed. Like, if I'm your boss, like, yes, we could strike up a sexual relationship. It's not advised, but it could happen. But if I'm your boss and I pressure you into, like, if I ask you for sex or ask you for a date and you say no,
you want the
and then I keep going, then it's harassment, and I get sued for a huge amount of money. Not to mention lose my job. And it seems like these things are not happening in porn. Like, they are happening a bit, but like the same companies that will, like Gamma, for example, they take this stuff very seriously in America, but in Europe, it's just a free-for-all, and they don't seem to care. So I think it's the financial penalty for this stuff. That,
if they can get away with something, they're going to get away with it. If they can see that they can go, that's like when people put money into offshore accounts. That's like when people go and they they do business like, okay, I'm gonna open a clothing company, but I'm not gonna make my clothes in America because I can make my clothes in here for cheaper. I don't give a fuck if little kids are doing it or not. It's cheaper for me and my business, right? It goes back to the ethics. Like, when is it gonna be like you have to like you said, ethical porn. You have to be thinking of everyone. And unfortunately, in countries like Europe and places like Asia, sex workers are not treated well at all. At all. There's so many people being trafficked There's little kids being shipped from America in submarine to places like that to be put into sex trafficking rings. There's things that are going on overseas because people overseas don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
They
America
don't.
does have the highest standards by far for all this stuff, especially for women's rights. And
that's because we have this. I think it's because of social media, right?
I think just like human rights like started in America, like civil rights come from America and they spread to the rest of the world. Like I think a lot of Americans don't appreciate that because you're always trying to make things even better, but you don't appreciate like how far ahead you are in terms of civil rights.
Like in freedom of speech, they're trying to
freedom of speech. You're the only country that has it. Nowhere else has it in the world.
even in some states, freedom of speech isn't allowed because they could be saying that you're trying to defame them. You're trying to, But thankfully, in certain states in America, if you want to claim that, you have to be able to prove it to 12 jurors that this person lied, that this person, without a reasonable doubt, did it maliciously because they don't like you. But if the jurors believe that this person was speaking on the best interests of their community so that nobody else would get hurt, and they're not lying, and they didn't do it to hurt anyone, they just did it to try and protect people and get the word out, then you can't, right? I know, like, if somebody were to say, like, the protest in Pakistan, people go sent to jail for saying something. People go get hung for saying something.
Yeah. Well, this is what's happening with the porn models in Europe, is that when they speak out on Twitter, the agents are threatening them. Lots of other people in the porn industry are threatening them. And in Hungary, for example, defamation or libel is a criminal offense and the police investigate. So they threaten them with the police. And that's what gets them to remove the post. So it's bullshit because I've been threatened with the same things and they never report it because they're the ones doing the crimes, but it's
because they're just trying to use it as a scare tactic. Like,
exactly.
Oh, look how big my dick is. I'm going to scare this pussy, like blah, blah, blah.
And the models, in Europe, a lot of them are maybe operating in a gray area that's not necessarily legal. And if you mention police, they go quiet. And it works. It's like we've got criminals using the police to silence victims. It boggles the mind, really. But I want to ask you about model liaisons, because you talk about this as a good thing. And I haven't seen this working in America, but the problems I had with it is I went to be an extra on a porn shoot just for like research to see how other people are doing it. They had a model liaison there, but she was just like a mate of the crew, She didn't really do anything.
That's what I'm saying. Some of these big companies have the liaisons, but they're not staying with their person. They're downstairs fucking eating Cheez-Its and like being a fat ass and just like moseying around and like on their phone, like talking to the makeup girl, talking to the sound guy, using it as their social time, right? They're not fucking to their job because their boss is so busy doing his thing. That fucking pisses me off because it's it true.
Seems to me that if they say anything bad, they're going to lose the job with the producer.
Literally, because it is. That's the facts. That's literally the facts. Like some of the biggest companies that I've worked for, they say, "Oh, we're this, we're this, we're this." They have over 50 people on set, everybody running around like a fucking goose, and like nobody knows what the fuck is going on. Everybody's like scrambling around, and like the talent are just sitting there like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
And
this is what it was like.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like they just do those things to cover their ass. Like, no, we had a talent assistant there. That couldn't have possibly happened. Oh, what was your talent assistant doing? Was your talent assistant right there with your partner? Or was your talent assistant down there making a salad or getting a donut or fucking on her phone looking through Pinterest? Or, those are the things. Like when you're on set, if you're the liaison, phone off. You're right there next to her. Do you need anything? Do you need me to get you a water? Would you like me to walk with you over there? Do you want to go take a break outside? Like, what are you hungry for? How are you feeling? Is there anything that we can do? How's the temperature? Those are the things. You're actually there to be assisting. It has to be one for each talent, even the extra, because you're the extra. Something could have happened to you too,
Yeah, and this is the thing, like I realized on my productions that even though I have always tried to make things in an ethical way, I came to realize recently that my type of production is the riskiest type because I'm the producer and often I'm the performer. And the pressure that's on the girl to just do whatever I say is too much, I think. And I didn't realize that until recently. And so I thought, okay, let's hire a talent liaison. And I couldn't think of anyone I could hire where they would be incentivized to be on the girl's side. In the end, I hired the most feminist girl I could find, like someone that just hates all men and like a stereotype of like a TikTok feminist, you know? And I thought, okay, this girl's not going to be scared to shout at me because she would care more about, you know, the girl than about the money. But it wasn't a perfect solution. And I felt that the incentives were not right. And it got me thinking that there should be, and maybe the government has to do this, but there should be like an agency where we book talent liaisons from an independent source. Like agents are independent and talent liaisons, they shouldn't work. They should get their money from the porn industry, but they shouldn't be hired by the porn industry because then their incentive is just to say everything's okay.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe there could be an agency for that. But I definitely do believe that there are people who are in the industry that would volunteer to do that. Like me. Like I'd volunteer. I would go on set. I would be a buddy, right? Or
That's
maybe
really good.
if instead of like, if the people couldn't find somebody they trust, they would allow someone to bring their own security with them. You know? Not like saying you have to bring your boyfriend or anything like that, because that's when things could go wrong. But when you say, for instance, if I'm going to feature dance at a strip club, I can bring a friend with me, but my friend cannot be my husband, right? Because my husband might see something and he might lose his shit quicker. But my friend will be able to come at it with like a more calm mind, right? Somebody who doesn't have that connection with me that would make them be a little bit too jumpy, right? But it's that if we had some code between each other, we could read each other, she would know when she would need to step in, and she'd be able to step in a respectful way, not in a dangerous way.
Yeah,
you know?
That's clever, actually.
So I think there's a lot of retired stars, and I think there are a lot of people like, like people who sign up to be background cast on like porn films, like that don't necessarily want to be naked, but they would gladly take a paid gig like that. Like, hey, we don't need you to be in film, but instead we're going to pay you just to stay with this person and be their assistant for the day. There's so many personal assistants out there. You know what I mean? And they'll do it. They don't have to watch, they just have to be okay with the sex. And there's quite a few people who are not uncomfortable around sex. So I don't think it would be that hard. It would just take extra work. And that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to put the time in to do the research, to pay the extra money. They want to keep the cost as low as possible and just hope that nothing happens. You know?
It's very tricky. And I think anytime you've got a security concern, which is what this is, you do have this problem of, who makes sure that, who polices the police, like who's going to monitor the model liaison to make sure they do their job right. And yeah, I guess maybe if it is a friend or if the model chooses the liaison, it's better. Because like you say, there's lots of people to pick from. So yeah, I think that's a decent idea. Like one more thing I want to talk about is like a thing I've noticed with like your Twitter thread, for example, some of the crimes are so heinous and it's obvious the kind of effect that must have on people mentally. But what I said earlier about like sometimes the fans are minimizing the crimes. Like, oh, she didn't say no, so it's fine. And I guess I just want to understand what kind of psychological effect does it have on a girl if she doesn't say no? Is it the same as if it's, say, like a violent rape? Or is it different somehow? Or is it worse maybe because you blame yourself? I just don't understand. I don't know.
I think almost whenever somebody has finally had the courage to say, hey, this happened to me and this hurt me, and somebody comes and says, nah, it didn't hurt you. You wanted that. It almost is like you're having to, it's happening again. You know what I mean? Did that really happen? Am I tripping? Maybe I am just overreacting. You know, like those kinds of thoughts of doubt could go into your head, right? Then you might also get feelings of like anger, like, no, fuck you. Like, you don't understand, like, you know, or shit, the person might just want to shut down. Someone might kill themselves. We've had people who can come forward about abuse and nobody believes them and the internet attacks them and then boom, they're dead. Right?
Yeah.
It could be somebody could say that and that person could be so confident in what happened to them. They could be like, fuck you. You're just projecting because you probably do this shit in your personal life, you know? It really depends on who it is, to be honest. And you don't know how fragile somebody is. They could be really, really strong. They could know their truth and be so solid in that. And somebody could say that they're a liar and it not affect them. But in the end, somebody could be not so fucking strong. And that one comment could break them. That literally could break their whole entire being, you know, and could send them somewhere really, really, really dangerous. So, you know, whenever I see people trying to speak on other people's experiences, it just goes back to like, if you weren't there, if you didn't see it, if you didn't feel it, do you have the right to say anything about it? I mean, of course you can, right? You can say anything you want from behind a screen. But would you say that to that person's face? Probably not. Probably wouldn't. They're, you know, half these people, you know, and maybe these accounts are like the people who are being accused of it's fake accounts and they're coming there and they're just, you know, being so brave behind the screen with like 25 followers, no profile picture saying, oh, no, bitch, you deserve to be raped or, you know, whatever. We don't know who the fuck these people are. You know, you just have to take it. Some people care about what other people think. Some people don't care about what other people think.
How's the response been for you personally?
For me personally, annoying. I'm annoyed. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I don't like knowing that people are continuing to be hurt by the person that hurt me. It makes me feel responsible. It makes me feel like I should have taken this person out when I had the chance. It makes me think crazy things sometimes, you know? It's like it's a wide range of emotions. Like since Wednesday, I haven't been able to sleep. Like I'm going to bed at like 3:00 in the morning. When I finally fall asleep, I'm having night terrors, screaming, like waking up in sweats. Like I am feeling maybe like when I'm reading the things that happen to people, I'm absorbing their trauma in a way.
I can relate to this so much because when I first exposed one of the people I did, I then got lots of DMs and people started sharing their stories with me. And it ruined my Christmas. You know, I wasn't myself. And I didn't learn until later that like secondhand trauma is a thing. And I can't imagine, like I felt so messed up. It took me a long time to process things.
Yeah.
Maybe I still haven't.
Yesterday.
But for the victims, I can't even imagine like
it's fucking horrible. And I'm still getting messages of people trying to have me speak anonymously for them. And I'm saying I can't anymore. I'm sorry. Because I just can't. It literally is killing me. If I like yesterday, I didn't get out of my bed. And when I did get out of my bed to make dinner for my family, I was like, damn, the whole day just went away. Right. And I have 2 children. I have to be able to be strong. Thankfully, my husband's been taking them to the park and doing all those things because he knows I needed some time just to chill. But not everybody has that support system to where if they are feeling like this, they can take a second and just lay down. And I don't even know if laying down is a thing. Like, even I getting so hot just thinking about it. Like, it's like, am I doing enough? Are we doing enough? Are we wasting our time?
How many like anonymous abuse allegations did you receive?
Over 500. And some of the girls have multiple things that's happened to them.
Oh my God.
I like my shit is boom, 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 boom. And most of the people's abuses have been happening on the same sets and by the same people. So
yeah, how many perpetrators are there, would you say?
I would say there's probably about 12 talent, and there's probably about like 3 or 4 agencies that play into the shit, and there's probably like 5 director camera people that they are known for it, you know.
But that's how it is in Europe. It feels like everybody knows who's abusive. Everybody knows what happens. And when we meet a new girl, we all try and warn them. But the agents that work with these producers, like the bad apple, like all the bad people work together, it seems. They're so closely connected. I don't know if it's like that in America.
So my agent that I had, I thought it was just common practice, but I guess it's not. Like whenever I had an agent, I was with Matrix Models. He was very good. So I learned a lot from him. I was overworked a lot, but I also didn't say, hey, I need a break, you know? I could have spoke up, but I didn't, you know? I was always working, but I was always working with people that he gave me, like, their profiles. He showed me what kind of videos they make. He'd ask me, are you okay with doing this? Are you okay with doing that? He gave me the option, you know? And if he could tell, like, I can say, one time he sent me this site and I didn't even look at it. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. It looks cute. And he's like, did you look at the site? And I was like, oh no. And then I went looked at the site and I was like, oh, actually, never mind. You know, like it's just that, like having your talent's best interest at heart. Not everybody has that. You know, some agents are setting up, what do you call it? Like escorting. Escorting in porn is different. You know, going to have sex with a random guy who's just a random guy because he has a camera that's not porn. He's using it for his own thing, you know?
Exactly the same problem we have here in Hungary. Like, there's so little work now because there's so much abuse that most productions have left the country. And the agent that's here, they're just telling escort clients to use a camera, and then it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm shocked how similar America and Europe is, though. Like, I always thought America was like the kind of squeaky clean, more professional porn industry, but 500 allegations is huge.
Over 500. Well over. And, you know, it's crazy because the people who are like saying this stuff to me, they don't think anybody would ever believe them. You know, when they're saying it to me and they're saying, I want to remain anonymous because I'm afraid I'm not going to get work. Or the last time I spoke out about something like this, I didn't get booked for 4 months, you know? Thank God thankfully I'm in a position that I have built my own name and I do my own thing. Right. And thankfully, I'm not one of those people who has to have $1 million to feel like I'm successful in life. You know, I'm perfectly content with my little solo income that I make for my OnlyFans. And if I were to need to have to get another job, a normal job, I would, because I'm not going to do something that makes me feel less than. Back in the day, yes, I would. Yes, I would have done it, you know, because I wasn't strong enough. I hadn't gone through trauma healing. I hadn't took courses to knowledge myself on like PTSD and complex trauma to realize that I had trouble making choices for myself. You know, I never had practice making choices for myself. I never saw a healthy relationship or dynamic of power in my life when I was growing up, right? I had to teach myself these things. I had to learn to reprocess emotions and how to react, when to react, what to react about, you know? What am I comfortable with? Who am I as a person? You know, what do I like? You know, do I like this? Or am I pretending because I want to be popular? Those things take a while. Those things take maturity. Those things take having a support system around you that make you feel like you're able and like you're smart enough to do things by yourself, you know? And unfortunately, a lot of people in our industry don't have that. And that's just the nasty part about it. Most of us don't have solid people that we can call and talk to, like family or anything like that. Like I know when I first got into the industry, I was ostracized from my family. I couldn't call and talk to people. Like I could call and talk, but they wouldn't understand, right? It would be more so of like,
I was going to say, like,
expect,
yeah.
you know? And that's the thing.
It's like the good and bad side of porn. Like the good side is that it brings us very close together. Like the friendships you have in porn can be incredibly close. But the bad side is when you talk about your job to outsiders, like they can't relate.
What? You do what? Like,
yeah.
And I know I spoke to my grandma yesterday and I informed her about what was going on Twitter. And her response was, well, when you're in that field, that stuff's going to happen, right? But I was like, no. It's about consent.
This is the most common reaction.
Yeah.
But,
it's like actually...
But, you know, I've noticed a big age gap with consent. Like it tends to be the older producers that don't understand it. Not all of them, but the older ones seem not to. And with talent, like I've got a theory on male talent, and obviously it doesn't apply to everybody, but I find most male talent is very insecure in themselves. Like just very insecure. And I've always wondered if that like maybe plays a part, that because there seems to be this like competition with the men, that they all want to be like the hardest performer. Not all, but a lot want to be seen as
the strongest
performer. Yeah. And it's very unhealthy.
It is very unhealthy. You can even go to, even like for transgender porn, you know? There's certain types of people that are treated better than others, right? And someone like me and you who've only experienced like traditional boy-girl and girl-girl films, we might not have the same experiences as some of these people who are doing different styles of porn, right? And people, I feel a lot of people are insecure, right? But a lot of people feel sexy, right? We all know we're hot. That's why we're doing it. So we're putting in this mask and we're creating the character, that girl next door, the it guy, you know, they want to be the best of the best. And how do you become the best of the best? You can't do the stuff that everybody else is doing, right? You got to do something extreme. You got to do something wild. Like, for instance, somebody had sent me a message saying that her husband had got her into porn, right? But he told her the only way she'd be popular is if she did the most extreme things. So she did the most extreme things for a long time. And then she finally got a divorce and she finally got to find, I don't like this. I hate that. Don't talk to me about this. Don't tag me in that. That's traumatic for me. I don't want to see that. I can't believe I did that. You know?
Yeah.
That's always happening. Until someone says like, hey, actually, we don't need you to fuck her for 40 minutes. It's okay if you come in 10 minutes. It can be normal. Sex doesn't have to be like, you know, if it's a good scene, right? That's when it goes back to conscious porn. What are we doing, right? Is it realistic to make somebody think that you're fucking for an hour?
Well, right? This is a crazy, you know where this comes from? Like when porn was on DVDs, a sex scene was like 10, 15 minutes because like DVDs are expensive. So they edited down. But now you've got like 5 minutes of doggy, 5 minutes of missionary, 5 minutes of cowgirl. And you've got like these scenes that are like 50 minutes long. And
it's like, who the fuck can last that long?
Who's having a 50-minute wank? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, like when I have sex with my husband, our average sex time is like 3 to 5 minutes. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
like
that's the average for a man. Yeah.
And that would make someone feel like I get people in my DMs like, how do they last so long? And like, I wish I could do this for my girl. Like, I'm like, no bitch wants to be fucked for 40 minutes. Okay. Nobody. Like, your pussy starts to get sore. You start to get annoyed. Like, you can only look at somebody on top of you for so long. You can only come so many times. Like, after a while, it gets desensitized. Like, you're just like, all right, when is this over? Oh, yeah. Like, no. Like, real sex, that's what I think porn should start switching over into. Stop trying to make it into a fucking movie and make it seem like it's like, oh, or maybe post the BTS and let them know, oh, we were on set for 12 hours. Okay. We fucked for 4 hours off and on. It was not straight through. You know what I mean? And like, these guys are having to take medicines and pills. And like, you could even remember that story of that one guy who shot Viagra into his dick and it exploded.
There's multiple guys have, like, some guys we know have to pump their dick up now. It's like
there's this one guy has had to get a rod put in his dick because his dick got broken. And it's like, those things are dangerous. Those things are happening to people. Those are real. Those are really traumatic. Imagine that guy that had to go get that rod put in his dick. How scary that was probably for him. He was probably like, I'm never going to be able to work again. There goes my livelihood. I just did porn for my whole life. Now I can't go get a fucking normal job because they're going to fire me as soon as they find out, because that's what happens in America. If they think that you're going to be damaging to their reputation, they will fire you. Although it's not supposed to happen, it fucking happens. When I took a 5-year hiatus, it happened to me. I was being sexually assaulted. I was being all kinds of shit, and people thought it was okay because I did porn before. Even though I wasn't actively doing porn right then, they thought it was okay. So it's like, or they would be advertising that Leah Gotti was their bartender, but it wasn't Leah, it was Reagan there. You know what I mean? I wasn't there to talk to people about sex. I wasn't there to do anything. I was there to make drinks, talk about the sporting game that's on there, be normal, have normal conversation, but then it starts to get to where it's not, because people don't really care or have feelings or able to understand that it was a job. It was just acting, Like,
do you think that porn has some responsibility to explain to people that it's not real?
Yes, I do all the time. All the time. Anytime.
But I mean the industry, like, say, on porn sites.
Yes, I do. So, for example, I shoot with. Come on, get up here. My dog's doing crazy shit. For instance, I shoot a lot of solo bondage, right? I go into deep subspace, where I'm even like playing in roles where like I'm being kidnapped, or something like that. But in those videos, there's also me saying I consented to being this. I consented to playing in this role and using this, and this tools to be tied up. And then also they put like a disclaimer in the front saying, everything that you see here was consented and blah, blah, blah. It like gives them a breakdown. Like, and you could see it when they saw American Damsels and FM Concepts. And they do really extreme bondage and they do really extreme role play. But I have 2 people there at all times with safety scissors and everything. They're always checking me. They're always making sure I'm doing good. It's never like I get tied up and they walk out the room and leave me there for 20 minutes because they want me to really be scared because they want a good act, They trust that I'm going to be able to put the show on and give the performance that they need. And whatever I give them is good enough. They're not going to say, can you like maybe cry a little bit? Or can you like, make it look like you're really hurting or make it look like you're really struggling, It's never pressured to be like more than what I'm willing to give. And that's important because there's a lot of places, especially bondage, where it's really dangerous. And whenever somebody's being put into submissive space and they're there, you're really there. It's like all your other things are up in the air. You get scared, your anxiety comes, but that's part of it. You're submitting into that because you trust the people that are doing it to you. And that's the thing. These people are removing the trust from the aspect of porn. The trust has to be there. Transparency has to be there.
And in America, are they actually leaving the abusive behavior in the video as they are in Europe? Like they're selling the abuse?
In my opinion, if you would go to Ryan Madison's page, like Team Fidelity, you can see it. There's been girls, I have friends, I wish I could say the exact scene, but she's too afraid to talk about it. There's actually a scene on there and she's fucking crying. She is dead ass crying. And he's still going, speak on my personal experience from shooting with that guy. I told him I don't do cream pie, right? And he cut camera and tried to argue with me for 10 minutes trying to make me do it. But I was not going to let him do it. And then you could see towards the end of the scene, he was being aggressive and mean towards me. And it was like he was trying to hurt me because I didn't allow him to do what he wanted to do. You know, but I'm a little bit different. I'm not going to let somebody break me, right? But I'm going to remember that. I'm never going to work with that person again. But I didn't speak up. I should have spoke up and said, hey, he just did this to me. I didn't tell my agent. I didn't tell my boyfriend at the time because that was my abuser and I knew he would fucking do some crazy shit. So I just kept it in, you know, until now, 5-6 years later. And how many girls did that? How many girls were too afraid to tell their agent, he did this to me? Or how many girls are too afraid to tell their boyfriend, hey, he did this to me because they think their boyfriend will go kill somebody and go to jail, you know?
Do you think part of the reason is, because I don't know if you know like my full story, but I reported the abuse to Xbiz and AVN. They ignored it. And people were sharing videos of girls being anally raped in porn videos on the Xbiz forum, like where all the producers and industry talk. And they banned me from the forum.
Well, I have really close connects at Xbiz and AVN, and I'm going to ask them about this because that's very alarming. I didn't know.
I also found out that if you notice, why not AVN and Xbiz, they never ever cover an abuse story until it's in mainstream news. And it's actually they deliberately don't cover them. And I also have text messages from Xbiz showing that Xbiz are telling models they can't speak out because it's bad for them if they do, because the whole industry will get hurt, because there's like anti-porn groups that want to end porn, and if they speak out about their abuse, everybody suffers.
That makes me so mad because I have a conversation being played in my head right now from a person I can't talk about that I talk to, but
I'm sure we're thinking of the same person. I'm sure we're thinking of the same person.
Yeah, we are. I'm pretty positive.
Yeah. So like,
oh my God.
Why do you think the adult media have decided to not
they probably
be
have,
journalists?
let me just say, they probably have skeletons in their closet. They're too afraid to say anything because they have people blackmailing them saying, hey, if you say this, I'm saying this.
Yeah, I know like one. Yeah, I'm sure. I know one person at Xbiz is, you know, pretty sleazy from what I've seen, but obviously not to name names.
I'm pretty sure like these people have, if they're afraid, let me tell you, silence in this situation speaks louder than words, because if you're silent when everyone is crying for help and you don't say anything, you're guilty for something. If you're afraid to speak up for the people who are being hurt, then you have participated in some form or another of covering it up or being a part of it or knowing about it, or maybe you've done something and that person knows that you did it. So if you report this on this, they're going to report that on you.
I know some producers who would love to speak up and support me, for example, but they feel they can't because they're worried about their commercial relationships with other companies.
That's where it has to be like, people have to be brave. If what it takes, if these anti-porn people come in and something happens and, you know, at least nobody is getting hurt anymore.
This is my argument now. I like people said, like people are saying, look, you're killing the industry. You're going to hurt the industry. And I'm like, well, I prefer no porn to girls being abused. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's other things we could do, but obviously we're not asking for porn to be ended. We're asking for people in porn to obviously reform and make better decisions so that the shit stops.
And by hiding it, I feel that all we're doing is giving ammunition to the anti-porn people that are going to say, see, they can't manage themselves. Like,
see, they can't even speak up about their abuse. See, they're victims. See, they're being trafficked. See, they're being forced to do this. And those things are not wrong. Those things are not wrong. Those are right. And the only way they wouldn't be able to say that is if we all decided to protect each other. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a recent convert, and I've thought about this a lot. Like, for 8 years, I knew exactly who the abusers were in Europe. I knew what they did. I've comforted girls when they've been crying. And every media opportunity I had, porn's amazing, it's so wholesome, like everybody's great. You know, never said anything bad, always promoted the industry, was like a good member of the community.
No, it's not. It's not all shits and giggles. Shit is not sweet. Literally, stuff is going wrong. It could be a beautiful thing. It could be an amazing place that allowed people to explore new ideas. It could be an amazing place where people actually have real organic sex, and we stop pretending, and we stop forcing people to take pills. And we stop forcing.
We've turned all the men into drug dependent performers, like.
And like the guys who are performing now, they can only have sex with, like, I've spoken to some people before saying, like, I'm gonna have to quit soon because it's not good for me to continue this. It's bad for my body. Like, so they're trying to get their scenes in, right? They're trying to get their stuff. They're trying to build their money. They're trying to do what they need to do. It's going to have a really bad effect on their health if they've been taking Viagra or stuff like that since their early 20s. That affects your heart. It affects your pineal glands. It affects your kidneys. It affects your whole insides, having to take that pill and allowing your body to...
It's not the pill. They're injecting much worse things than the pill. They're injecting the dicks. Like,
yeah, I know. It goes even further than that. It just starts small, and then and once that pill doesn't work anymore, then they have to keep doing it. It's just like any other drug. When you're doing crack, they're going to do a little bit at first, but then that crack addict is going to be able to do like a lot more crack in a few years. They have to, or they're not going to be able to get high because they built up a resilience to it. And it's just disgusting. Like,
yeah, well, one of the things is that a lot of people think that guys are hurting girls because they just can't feel their dick. That they're not really present in the scene.
Oh.
So because of like injecting their dick, they're not really getting any feeling. So there's no natural passion. So the passion's been replaced with aggression.
That makes sense.
That's one of the
Especially
theories.
When you're young, when you're a younger guy, you already have so much testosterone, right? And when you're taking that pill, if you're not able to feel, of course that testosterone could turn into rage and aggression. Because
it's the injection one where they can't really feel anything. Like a lot of the guys struggle to come, so they have to inject the urethra with I think I can't remember what the ingredient is. You know the thing you take for stomach acid mixed with some water, and then they do like a fake cum shot with that. It's just wild what happens.
Oh my God.
But at least in Europe, that seems to be how it is. Maybe in America, they haven't gone that far. Yeah, like so many guys
I haven't shot boy-girl porn since 2016, so that world to me is just...
There were probably still more natural performers when you were working. Like
I think so.
Yeah.
Think so.
Now it's dominated by drugs. Completely dominated by drugs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I want to ask you as well, like, do you think when men sit at home watching porn where girls are clearly being abused, that can change their behavior and make abuse more acceptable to them?
Absolutely. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When people are on porn, they're getting that, like, say, a child, even though we know they should not be watching porn. A young man is watching porn because he's horny, and maybe his category that he first started watching was some fucking crazy aggressive stuff, right? And say he has his girlfriend and they go on a date, they have a few drinks, they go home, and then they go to have sex and he slaps her across the face. Or he fucking shoves his finger in her asshole and is like banging her. And she doesn't say anything, and then she leaves and she's fucking mortified. She thinks she got raped. She breaks up with him, right? And he's like, but wait, what did I do wrong? That happens. That literally happens. That happens all the time. People, when we're online, we're absorbing information. That's research. Anytime we're online, we're learning about something new, whether it be like something stupid, like when you watch somebody do a little science experiment with the soap and the food coloring, you're going to remember that, right? You're going to remember the stuff that you're watching because your mind has memory. Your body is having implicit memory all the time. And these kinds of things, if people are not saying like, hey, we did this, this, and this to ensure the safety of our model first, that is very dangerous. You're teaching the world that's okay. Like, for example, I've done things that I do not agree with at all. Like, I was abused by my stepfather growing up, right? But when I first got into porn, I was just taking any and all roles. And then now that I'm fucking 26 years old and I think about some of the shit I did, I'm like, holy shit, I played into that. I played into this nasty fucking idea that if you're a stepmom or if you're a stepdad, you can fuck around with your kid because even though it's not your blood, right? Even if you've raised it forever, even if this and that, when it gets old enough and it starts to get features, it's okay to be sexually attracted to them because it's not your blood, right? But that's not true because when you adopt a child, when you have a child that isn't yours, it's your child regardless if you're raising it as your child. You're praying. Like, I realized that I played into that. I'm like, oh my God. Did my stepdad maybe watch porn one day and think that was hot or something? Like, maybe he thought that was okay because it's all, when you go to Pornhub, you see step bro, step sis, stepdaughter, stepmom, it's plastered everywhere. But that is a very, very dangerous thing.
Yeah, I started collecting vintage porn posters, like from the 60s and 70s. And the way they used to advertise incest was as incest. It was, this is brother and sister. This is mom and son. And
there's currently twin sisters
changed.
that are in.
There's a mom and daughter working together
in America.
In Europe now. In Europe, there's a mom and daughter working together.
Yeah, there's a father and son in Australia that work together. There's twin sisters here in America that shoot scenes together for huge companies. They're blood sisters. Like, that's illegal.
But this is the thing. So all the time I was in porn, I always used to say, like, look, people don't go out and rob a bank just because they saw it in a movie. So, like, just because you see
so they might think about it.
Porn,
they might think about, like, hey, if I was going to rob a bank, this is what I would do. Or if I was going to commit this crime, this is what I would do to not get caught. That's where it starts to go. Because some people, like I said, some people can control impulsive thoughts, right? Some people can't. Some people might have an autistic thing, like where they can't tell what's right from wrong. And if they're shown it, they think it's okay. Like, for instance, you could see, like, there's kids who will take their clothes off in public and touch themselves because they have a mental disorder, but they don't know that it's wrong. They just think that they're having fun, right? Yeah. You never know what person is watching that and how they're going to take it, And
I think also the problem is that with sexual assault, it usually happens one-on-one with just one word against another. And it's sadly, it's a crime that people can get away with. Whether they know they're doing it or not.
Because it's
one of the things,
her against him or him against her, or her and her against her, or him and him against him, And
then when you're in court, the lawyer, when they cross-examine you, they victim blame so much and attack your character, attack what you were wearing, your profession.
If there's alcohol involved, if there was drugs that were involved, if all those 12 people have only ever had vanilla sex in their whole life, and they're like, oh, she was down for having candle wax poured on her, they're going to be like, that bitch is satanic, Like,
and so, some people do think that someone's asking for it, and it's horrible. But one of the things that's really affected me probably the most was I wasn't just getting stories from people in the industry who'd been abused. I was getting a lot of girls from outside the industry contacting me and saying they'd been hurt or sexually assaulted by guys that said they were trying to be like Rocco Siffredi, for example.
Yeah, I've gotten a few of those as well. I've gotten a few people who are like, I'm not in the industry, but I just wanted to talk to you because I've never talked to anybody. And,
it
it's
changed
like,
my view of,
I'm like, what do I do with this information? Yeah. That's what I said. I've been feeling so overwhelmed and so sad and so scared and so angry and so many feelings that I'm not really even sure that I'm aware of what it's doing to me subconsciously, because it's obviously when you put yourself in the position to speak for people and you put yourself in the position to be the one who's jotting down and remembering and being the source that people are confiding in, you see the dangerous, you see what's really happening, and you don't know what to do. Like,
I felt
you don't know what to
powerless
do.
was how I
Yeah,
felt.
exactly. I just
Really
been feeling like I just have to lay down like this all day and cry and just be like, what's next?
Now,
Like, can I create a coalition and fucking make my own porn Judge Judy show or something? I don't fucking know. You know, your mind just goes crazy with all the, what can I do? And
I completely relate. Like, I think I cried when my granddad died. I cried when my grandma died. But in February, no, not February, January, I cried so much. And I couldn't explain why. Like, I felt guilty for being so upset because these crimes didn't happen to me. But I don't know. I felt responsible because some of them hit really close to home because they were girls that maybe I could have saved if I'd spoken out sooner.
Same.
And that was really, really hard to take. And then I also found out some girls on my website had been sex trafficked. And just the way, I guess I was thinking, like, how could I have maybe done something different going in? Like, even girls on my website, like, I think realistically I did turn a blind eye to a lot of things and just asking a few extra questions rather than just benefiting.
Yeah.
So I feel terrible. It's hard to imagine that I could have been so selfish before and then something changed now. So it's very difficult to process.
Yeah, it really is. Especially when you know that, like, the only thing that could stop, like, these people from continuing to do what they do is if they were in jail or if they were dead.
Yeah, well, I do think that as an industry we could have blacklists, and the bigger companies can control things very easily.
Yeah, but even if those people aren't allowed to shoot in porn, they're still going to be doing it to their partners, because I was being abused offset. My abuser is a porn star, right? When I was on set, I wasn't being abused. It was happening to me offset. And of course, when my abuser goes on set, he's going to be giving those people his best version of himself,
Yeah. I think all people that, I think all sex criminals, rapists, people that sexually assault, I think, chemical castration exists. Let's be humane, like, not to them, but to the victims, and force them to take, drugs that take away their arousal, because they really shouldn't have it. Because prison's not enough. Like, prison isn't a punishment.
It's not, and they're sick.
And it's very short.
And when they're in prison, they could just be finding new victims in prison,
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, probably, I don't know for a fact, but when porn stars go to jail, they're idolized. They have a good time in there. Oh, yeah. Oh, fucking yeah. Oh, yeah. And especially the ones who are bi. They're going to be, like, treated like kings in there, because everybody's going to want to suck their dick. Everybody's going to want to get fucked by them. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
So when they're in there, they're not even being punished. They're having fun. Like, they're working out. They're getting their muscles big and strong. They're jacking off when they want to. They're getting their dick sucked when they want to.
Has the industry reached out to you in any way?
Not really.
Or what's the industry response been?
Like, talent that have spoke up before, they're all very compassionate and here for me, right? I've had some of the people that I mentioned that I feel comfortable with shooting. Of course, they always check on me, like Jackie, Holly Randall, Legend, and all of those people. They know they love me. They generally do love and care about me, and they're checking on me. But I could say a lot of people are also just quiet. They're not saying anything, not even a simple engagement with the thread, right? The thread that has 1.4 million views, it has eyes on it. But you can see some of these companies won't even click.
Not even a like, yeah. Sometimes they like it and then they unlike it. That's the thing.
Oh, no. Actually, we've had people in the industry who I could have considered friends. Instead of interacting, instead of calling to check on me, instead of calling to like extend or even send a simple message or a simple retweet or be like, we're here with you or something, they are sending sarcastic tweets. And then directors are liking those sarcastic tweets, but they won't have the balls to like my tweet, right? Instead, they're going to like a tweet that says some bullshit, right? So we know you're online, motherfucker. Hello? What's up?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to say anything? Oh, you must be guilty. You must be one of those ones. Like, and that's why I was trying to tell the people, pay attention to who the fuck is not saying shit right now. And if they aren't saying anything right now, don't take your ass to their set because they don't give a fuck about you. They care about the male talent, that cum shot, and that's it. They're going to give you your money. They're going to give you a little $1,000 or something, and they're going to make $1 million off that shit.
Yeah, I think not all the people, at least in Europe, I think there's just a lot of fear. Like, even some very close friends are terrified of just liking my tweet. And I don't think something bad is happening. Not with everybody.
No, that's them being pussies. They're pussies. You're being a pussy. Don't be a pussy. Don't be a fucking coward. Stand up to these people. And that's just what it is. Like, if you're going to sit there and you're going to be a little mouse, and instead of standing with your community, you're going to try and promote your videos. You're going to try and continue making yourselves go up. You're going to continue just to pretend like you can't see anything. You're going to pretend like you have the industry muted, as if you went through every fucking person on Twitter and put mute, so you could never have seen it. That's bullshit. Be like, I didn't know that was going on.
Yeah, people were not really supporting me publicly, only privately. And I thought, okay, let's post something that we can all agree on. So I posted about Jack Ripper, who is a child abuser and also very abusive towards women. Can't work in America, but because American companies won't hire him. But in Europe, the same American companies will hire him. So I thought, let's call out this guy. Nobody supported it, you know? And it's like,
I had tweeted about him, and I had tweeted about him, and I had people come at me about that, saying that they're gonna sue me, and he even messaged me himself.
He didn't message me, but
he messaged me. He definitely did.
But I think I know too. He even got arrested in Scotland for abusing someone. I know he's on parole. I think if he goes back to the US, he goes to jail, is my understanding.
Yeah, they were trying to scare me. They're like, we're going to come after financial compensation and all this stuff. And they were threatening me and saying all these things, you know.
Well, this is the surprising thing, that like Vixen would not hire him in America, but they will fly him to the Caribbean to film. And then what they do is they just don't tag him in the posts, and that makes it okay. You know, but like, how safe is it for the models to be around him? Like, I just don't understand how a company that presents itself in a very ethical, like modern way, and tries to present itself as like a fashion company, and then they have this kind of shady practice in Europe. I don't get double standard.
I was not aware of that. That's very alarming.
Yeah, and it's like they flew him to the Caribbean recently from Europe, right? Surely it's cheaper for them to fly an American there. Like, so, like, what's going on with that?
Oh my God.
So it doesn't make any sense. And then they just don't tag him, and that makes it okay.
It just goes back to like what I said. Some of these companies,
I think they think
Somebody's
because it's
somebody's-
happening in Europe, no one will see it and they can get away with it. Because I think if the American
No, they
girls
just don't give a
saw it-
fuck.
Yeah.
They don't care. They just want to please their customers. They're going to request to see the person on their site. They're using that because they know, in my opinion, people are using that because they know people like fear. People like to see people scared. People want to see. You don't have to fuck somebody with a 15-inch dick to make a good porno. Okay?
No, yeah.
There's so many people with nice dicks, perfectly fine dicks, who have no accusations against them, who have never been to jail, who have never done anything like that. You know what I mean? And they get pushed aside like they're not good enough. And it's just crazy. Why continue to work with people like that? I am going to call them after I get off of this and ask them about that, because I just feel like I've been being bullshitted around so I wouldn't talk about them on podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Oh, what did they say? If you don't mind me asking. Sorry.
I've been told I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So I don't know. I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah.
I really don't know what I'm allowed to say. But I can speak on how I feel, and I feel like I've been being bullshitted.
I think we all are. I think when, and you know, I don't know how much people really know. This is my problem. So like, remember when like the allegations against Ron Jeremy and when there was the huge MeToo in porn thing, and everybody picked a side, and I was like fully supporting all the girls, but when it was one of my friends or someone I knew that was accused of MeToo allegations, I didn't believe the girls. And I was like, well, they didn't go to the police, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. And it was just so hard for me to accept that someone who's a friend that does nice things for me, that I see doing nice things for other people, could do anything bad. And like, to my shame,
That's crazy.
I would continue working with them and putting girls in danger, I guess. But I get it now, but it took me 10 years.
Like, yeah, that's just like going back to say this. Just because I've gotten in a fight before, right? Just because I've gotten in a fight with one person doesn't mean I'm going to fight every fucking person I see, right? Mm-hmm. So just because somebody didn't hurt somebody in front of you, just because somebody acts cool in front of you, just because somebody hasn't shown you that side of them, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And that's where it comes. Like, we have to stop putting our own personal experiences with people to allow that to make opinions on other people's experiences with those people. Because we don't know what the fuck they act like when they drink. We don't know what the fuck they act like when they're a little bit stressed out. We don't know how they act when they're sad. We don't know how they act when they're depressed. Like, you know, we know how they act with us because that's what we've seen. But I can guarantee you, like, nobody really knows you unless they live with you.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows you unless they live with you. Unless you're there every day, you cannot pretend every single day. You know what I mean? But you could pretend every single time I talk to you. I could pretend every single time I talk to you that I am a fucking doctor and I am this and I am that. And you would never fucking know. You would take it at face value, right?
Yeah.
Until I gave you a reason to look it up and see. She never even went to medical school. She's never been a doctor. She worked for a gas station or something. You know? You could move anywhere in the world right now. Change your name. And be whoever you want to be. That's how you see these guys that are going to Europe and doing that shit. Just like that. You can pretend to be anyone you want to be. It's like a video game. Mm-hmm. It's just like a video game. That's why you can never know.
Like I say, I get it now, and I feel so ashamed of my behavior and my views. But at the time, like, that's just how I rationalized it. You know, and it didn't even make sense. But and it's like another good example is if you look at like Trump, for example, when he was accused of sex crimes, it divided the country. Half the people believed them, half the people couldn't believe them. And then when Joe Biden was accused of sex crimes, it it was the opposite half of the country, believing and not believing. So it's like, it's very, very hard for us to accept someone we idolize or someone who's a friend or someone that does nice things.
That's okay to admit, because it's okay to admit that. It's okay to admit, hey, I'm sorry I didn't believe you, but you just have to take accountability. And then moving forward, you have to stand with people and be upset when people are hurt and compassionate when people are hurt, and do your best to be the person who helps spread the information in hopes of change, regardless of the threats that we get, regardless of who's trying to scare us to shut up, right? Because if we shut up, then it keeps happening.
And I think one of the things that I didn't understand that I do now that has made me support any girl that makes an allegation, I think we should believe them until we prove it wrong, you know? And I didn't believe that before. But now I've seen how hard it is.
It's like that innocent until proven guilty thing, right?
Yeah,
unfortunately,
exactly.
a lot of them are never going to be proven guilty.
But yeah, but
not in sex
I didn't realize, like, yeah, I thought, you know, I even said to myself, like, oh, some of these girls, they just want publicity. But it's not the kind of publicity the girls want. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that, you know, that they don't want to be seen as victims. They don't want people to think that they were abused and it's humiliating and all these other complex emotions. And I did not understand how hard it was for a girl to go onto Twitter and just type out what happened to her and click post. And I maybe still don't understand how hard that is, but maybe you can explain to people why it is so difficult and how you, like, how did you get the courage to post and what went through your mind when you did?
I just didn't give a fuck. I said, fuck it. You're guilty until you prove me that you're innocent.
But like you say, it was like, it took 5 years to get there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it took 5 years. I just got mad one morning. And I was like in a manic mood. And I was like, okay, today's the day. Releasing it. Like, I've had people fighting and saying, like, this one girl got so upset and she thinks that I deleted her post because I don't believe her, but I deleted her post because people were going underneath it saying mean things about her and saying that she was a liar. You know? And like, let me see. She said, this experience has been extremely upsetting, right? That was not my goal. That makes me feel so worse, right? This experience was supposed to help people feel like somebody cares, right? This experience is supposed to help call out the people who are hurting people. In no way was this experience supposed to be for people to try and lie on other people for their own personal gain, or to try and destroy people's egos, or, you know, any of those things that are happening. And it's happening. And it's so, like, disturbing.
Yeah. What would you like to see happen?
I would like to see people in jail. I would like to see the people who have raped people being prosecuted. There's a 10-year statutation in California. I'd like to see all the girls with the same abusers go to the jail. I mean, go to the police station with lawyers and say, this happened to us, and report it to the FBI and report it to this stuff, and just see companies admit policies into their practice that will assure safety for everyone across the board, regardless of the cost it takes. You know, I'm sure they could put a GoFundMe up online and porn fans would be willing to donate to pay for those liaisons, you know, or, you know, anything to make it safe. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think you're right about the prison. And I've been 100% focused on just trying to make the industry safe, but there is a bigger picture, and that is justice. And yeah, I don't know, I wish there was some kind of, see, the porn industry is so small compared to other industries. Like, I wish there was some kind of, like, helpline we could put out where models can contact like a lawyer that's understanding and can liaise with police that are also understanding and won't victim blame them. Because there's so many steps in order to get justice. And I don't know, maybe with all the people that have contacted you, maybe it might be a good resource for someone like a charity or something to be able to do some outreach, and maybe if enough people go forward, it will help. I don't know. But it's a huge, huge task. And I hope it happens.
Yeah, there needs to be something. I'm thinking like I need to make a website to allow people to report stuff anonymously, and then having like a group of people to like vote on it, you know, and then having a list made. And
well, this is the thing. Like, you know, APAG, they have a form, like the Porn Performer Union. I reported like Rocco Siffredi's videos to APAG. And I tried reaching out to APAG, but they didn't care. Like, nobody reached out. So I don't know if it's because it's part of Gamma, and Gamma are like too big and powerful, and no one wants to upset, you know, the company that has the most productions. I mean, they have more productions than Pornhub. So like every performer depends on Gamma for their income, I guess. But again, like the industry respond, like, because you can whistleblow on the APAG site, but
that's like, why I've been talking to them a lot, and they're like, oh, we're going to report this to the FBI. We're going to do our investigation, you know. But how long do those investigations take, and what steps are going to be taken in the process of these investigations to, I guess, hold us over?
I think maybe the best thing like the US justice system, maybe sometimes it's best to just go private and file civil charges, because I think the porn industry listens when models go after their money. That's the only thing they care about, really. Like the legal stuff, it's chasing after the individual abusers. And yeah, maybe they'll go to prison. But civil cases, like if you can say that, oh, I wasn't protected on set. Because I think someone did that to MindGeek. Like MindGeek are the ones who kind of pioneered the model liaison. And I can't remember who it was, but one of their producers was accused, and she, instead of like going to I think she went to the police as well, but she just hired a lawyer, sued them for $6 million, and they changed their ways really quickly. And maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Like maybe we need more lawyers in porn to make things safer. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just riffing.
But even whenever I've spoken with lawyers, it's just really hard to have it go into civil court and go into criminal court and have people who will be able to, have people to be able to understand like what's happening.
Well, this is the problem. I think these things are so complex for people outside the industry to understand that a lot of people just don't even understand that there is a crime, or that there is something wrong even. It's very sad. Yeah. But I think if enough people are organized together, like the lawyer that represented in the Girls Do Porn case, for example, like they won. And I think they also sued Pornhub. So maybe like a lawyer like that, who's experienced with similar things against the porn industry already, maybe that's like someone you should maybe speak to, or like you and all the people who have contacted you.
Yeah.
And it's just riffing. Like, I don't think there is an easy fix, but yeah, I just hope you get some
shining it.
Yeah.
I hope so. I think so. I hope people will listen. I hope we can see some change. I hope if at least we don't see change, girls can see my thread and make their no list include companies and talent that we have accused of hurting other people. And maybe that could make it get better. I don't know.
Like you said, maybe if you have a website, maybe like once you get so many complaints, there's like a kind of model blacklist, like a reference that models can use that are people they should never work with. Like they're just getting information to model. Like the problem with porn is there's no onboarding process. Like it depends on your agent, doesn't it? It's like there's no one there to say like, watch out for this person, that person, and it's like
No,
sad that we
my
have to do
agent
that.
did that.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
agent
Yours
did
is
that.
great. Like a lot of agents are really, really good.
But I'll say
there are
this: I didn't listen to him. He told me when I started dating my abuser not to be involved with him, and I was being love bombed, and I was 18, and I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like, he's not dangerous. And then getting my ass beat. You know, like dumbass bitch.
I'm smiling, but only because you laughed. Like,
I know, because it's just crazy. It's just like the things that I was doing. I was just like, when you look at it, all you can do is laugh because you're just like, whoa. Like, yes, people have a part of when you're a victim, you play into roles as well, right? You're not just saying that everything is this person's fault. You have to acknowledge the things that you could have done better to prevent those things from happening, right? We all do. We all have to think about what in that situation.
It's very difficult when you're being manipulated.
Yeah, you can't think about it.
I've seen, like I said, I've seen in the porn industry, I've seen like how, like some of the abusive people, they're so fucking nice. And I think it could all be an act. Like that's just like their armor and how they get in, you know. They're master manipulators, abusive men, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know what the statistics are, but I know almost all the ladies that I'm friends with have been sexually abused when they were a kid.
Really? The thing I noticed is that most models don't have a close relationship with their biological father.
I've never met mine. And the dad who raised me, groomed me my whole life, had me give him lap dances and strip for him. And anytime I'd want to do something, like go to my friend's house and something like that, I had to, put a show on for him and do all these kinds of crazy things, right? And whenever I told my family about what was happening, I thought they would protect me, right? I thought they would call the police. I thought that they would kill him or something, right? They did none of that. My sister still continued living with him. My baby sister ended up who was his blood daughter. He ended up humping her in her sleep, like over her blankets. They don't care. Unfortunately, people really don't care unless it happens to them. And
they don't believe, do they? They don't believe.
They don't want to deal with the stress of having to go to court. They don't want to have to deal with the stress of doing this and that. I went to CPS and told CPS, Child Protective Services, what was happening to me. And they interviewed my dad. My dad told my sisters. My sisters lied to CPS and said that none of that stuff happened, right? Now my sisters feel guilty about that because nobody protected me, right? Then whenever I moved to college and stuff like that, I'm continuing to tell my family these things happen, right? But my family are still friends with him. My blood family, they're not even blood related to him, going to his weddings, going to his things, inviting him over, right? So then I'm inviting him over to hang out with me and my newborn child because, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it was my fault because I don't know. Like, what? It's such a fucking ass thing. Now I'm at the point where I can't even speak to my sisters. I can't even speak to my mother. I can't speak to anybody who didn't protect me because I have all this rage inside of me and I have all this pain inside of me that I cannot process. So whenever they say something to me or anything, it just automatically triggers like, fuck you. You didn't protect me. And when you go into this world and you weren't protected when you were a child, you're not going to believe that anyone's going to care to protect you now. You're not going to believe that anyone is going to think that that's a problem. You might not think it's a problem because it's been happening your whole life. Oh, I guess this is normal. My dad did it. Might as well my boyfriend's going to beat my ass too because my dad beat my stepmom up. Like, I wasn't raised by my biological mom either because she was on drugs and shit, So I was raised by my sister's dad and his wife. And nobody in that house was my blood. Nobody in that house had my best interest at heart. I told my stepmom, hey, I'm scared of dad. He's taking pictures of me when I'm bending over. I can hear the camera. And I told her that in 8th grade. She did nothing. And then it progressed from that to the stripping to even more until I ran away, right? And that's how it goes. When you turn the blind eye, the abuser gets more power. And the abuser continues to do more and more and more and more and more until the unthinkable happens. And then everybody's like, oh, you should have listened to her. You know? And that's how it is in porn too. It's how it is everywhere in the world.
It's just abuse, isn't it? And
just abuse in general.
And I think you raised a really good point because I think in porn, we are aware that people come from all kinds of backgrounds and there are a lot of vulnerable people working in porn, like men and women. And we should be more sensitive, not
empathetic to other
not
people.
Equally sensitive, but just things should be more strict than they are in real life.
Exactly.
And it's very disappointing that that's not happening. But I mean, even I've not really thought about this stuff until recently. And I'm supposedly presenting myself as a more ethical person. So it's if I'm not thinking about it until now, it's...
You weren't thinking about it because you were not exposed to the severity of it yet.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. When you start to wake up and you start to see it, if you choose to be quiet, that's the problem. But when you start waking up and you start to see it, you start taking accountability, you start reflecting on what you've done, you start thinking about, oh shit, I have to fix this. I've done this. You know, you hold yourself accountable, you talk about it, you're showing that you're not okay with it. You're doing everything in your power to make a difference. Even if it's just a little drop of water in the pond, a drop of water in the pond's adding to the volume. It's getting bigger. And every little drop every little drop is going to keep helping. And you can't erase it because if you take that drop out, it's going to lose it. It's going to go down again. You just have to keep adding in little by little by little. And eventually, people have to react because it's going to be a flood. And that's just what it is. Whenever enough people get pissed off, whenever enough people say, hey, that's whenever things happen. There's a change comes in masses. And it will only happen if everybody stands up together. That's just like anything in history we've seen. When people have revolutions, when people have, political things going wild, the only time you're going to get a thing happening is if everybody says, fuck that. We're not standing for that. And majority votes that it has to go. That's how it is in America. It has to be majority votes or nobody cares. It can't be half and half. It has to be majority is against it. But right now, majority is not against it because there's still people who are being quiet and keeping it balanced.
Well, there seems to be, I don't know if you've experienced this because I guess you've only just started, but I expected when I started exposing this for the story to go wild, but the mainstream media didn't show much interest. And I wonder if there's some negative association with MeToo now, or if people are maybe just tired of it and it's not news anymore, or maybe even because it's not happening in Hollywood and it's only about porn we're talking now, that people are well, it's just porn stars. It's normal.
That's what I said. It goes back to saying, if you're a sex worker, you aren't valuable to a normal person.
Because have any media reached out to you? Because I thought because you're American, people would be all over it.
No, they don't give a fuck about me. And that they don't give a fuck about this. They don't.
They would have done in 2015. They would have been.
No, they wouldn't.
Outside.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't.
The MeToo stories in 2015, they were huge.
No. The MeToo stories, for the people who were raped, they don't care about the people who are on set. They don't care about the people on set. They had to care on MeToo because everyone in the world cared. But unless majority cares, they don't care. And the majority does not care about sex workers. The majority doesn't give a fuck about anybody who's not working a 9-to-5, doing ethical, normal, fitting into the mold, going to college. They don't like that we don't have to fucking work. They don't like that I can stay home and raise my children and I can only work a few times a year and I'm set. Like I can just say on my computer, take a picture of my titties and that's it. They don't like that because they have to go to wake up at 6:55 in the morning, drink some shitty ass coffee, go to work for somebody else's dream, do all the things that they don't want to do. And then they only get the weekend and then they go party and get fucked up and feel like shit and then get overweight and they never have time for themselves. They don't have compassion or empathy for people who have that. They're like, she has time to heal. She has time to get it on her own, right? She can figure it out because she's doing all this already. She's got all the money in the world. Like I've had people comment like, so now that you get rich and famous, you want to complain about the industry that made you rich and famous. Yeah, like, bitch, I'm not rich and famous at all. I live in an apartment. I live a very modest life. At no point have I ever wanted to be a mega star who is rolling in dough, who's doing things that go against my moral values, who's shooting scenes that make me feel disgusting, you know? And it's okay if it took me so long to say it because nobody's saying anything. And that's why you don't feel like you can. And, you know, I wish maybe I could. Maybe I'll reach out to the news channels myself and be like, do you care or do you not? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start tagging LA's news channels and all those people and ask them, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to cover it? Do you want to bring it?
I'm sure they've seen it. Because your thread got quite big.
Well, then I'll tag them. I'm going to quote it and I'm going to tag all the news channels. And then we'll see which news channels respond and which news channels don't. And that'll be our little social experiment. Do y'all only care about MeToo or do you care about everybody? Because in America, everybody's supposed to be equal, regardless of what they do. That's what we believe. I mean, that's what our country was supposed to be built on. But unfortunately, we are starting to see that our country is very corrupt. And although we do have a lot of privileges, a lot of people have more privileges and are protected from being held accountable because of who they are, how much money they have, maybe because a politician went to their sex party, right? I have politicians all in my DMs, married politicians that are on boards of like huge things, right? Asking me for meetups. I'm not an escort. They don't know that. I could expose them right now, right? But I'd be in trouble because I disclosed a private message.
Would you be?
Yeah. Apparently, if you yeah, that's the thing. I live in a state actually that I'd be protected in. But certain states, they don't protect you. They don't protect you. But I do live in a state actually that believes in the First Amendment, and they'd have to prove a lot to make me guilty. So
yeah, because I mean that coming at it from a journalism point of view, you would be treated as an independent journalist in that situation. And if you
maybe I will. Maybe I'm going to turn my career into a journalist, and I'm just going to start reporting all this shit. Maybe me and you should create our own newspaper.
Because that's kind of where I'm going with my podcast. To be honest with you, I'm thinking like, should I quit porn and just do the podcast because these stories need telling? And but yeah, really, like a politician, a public figure who's taking taxpayer dollars and telling the public he's this like good family man. And then it turns out he's DMing girls to meetups. There's a public interest there. So I think he'd be protected in all
DMing girls for disgusting meetups. They're into weird shit. Some of these people are into some really weird shit, okay?
I heard
this from huge parties in LA. I've been to some parties where I was like, what the fuck is happening? You know what I mean? Like, I did not sign up for this. Like, when you walk in, there's parties where people are literally there and it's so disturbing. There's people that are people are going to be offended by this, but this is my opinion. Okay. So if you're one of my friends and you're watching this, I'm sorry if you participate in these parties, but I think that there is a problem within these parties. There's parties where people are there in their furniture. There's parties where people are there. They're wearing animal heads. They're doing really scary sex acts. There's people there that don't even look like they're old enough to be in high school. There's things and there's roles that are being played and people wearing diapers and pretending to be babies and like really dangerous things, I think, to be dancing around and playing with. And there's very powerful people that go to these parties, celebrities, politicians, lawyers, teachers that work with children. You know what I mean? Like, those things are happening and nobody's talking about them, because when people go, they have signing NDAs and they have all these things in place to protect this horrific shit. And only certain people are going to feel a certain way about that, right? And it's only going to be the people who have probably been affected or abused when they were a child or hurt as an adult that are going to care. If they haven't, they're going to find it sexy, kinky, yummy, taboo. Ooh, we're doing something so explorative. We're just embracing our sexuality. We're just allowing our body to do what it wants to do, right? How's that any different than what's happening whenever somebody's getting raped and they're playing into those fantasies that y'all are pretending like are good?
Yeah, this is something I'm exploring on the podcast, so I don't have clear views on it yet. Like, obviously, I'm all about free speech and free expression, but I do feel that sometimes in BDSM, especially in the more extreme acts, that, like, for example, with some forms of BDSM where you're cutting yourself, at what point does that become self-harm? And like you say, like with things like CNC and like role play, like forced sex fantasies, like, is there a point where you're actually, okay, the person being abused is enjoying it, but are you just like kind of recreating their abuse?
No, it's mental illness. Somehow? It's mental illness. I don't know,
I've spoken to some psychologists and they say that it is a coping mechanism for some trauma survivors.
It's a coping for the trauma survivor, but not the person who is, not the person who is committing the reenactment of the trauma. The person who is pretending to be the abuser in that situation is practicing. And in my opinion, that's only giving that person more and more confidence to practice that on somebody who isn't.
Yeah, well, I've got a psychologist coming on the podcast soon, so I'll definitely ask them that question.
Yeah, please, because I'd love to know.
I want to know. Yeah. Because I love sex, and I think doing porn, we think of ourselves as kind of sex experts, but these big questions, I think we do need to get real answers to.
I've had super fucking disgusting things come in my head, right? We all have had super fucking weird things that we think about and that we might have fantasies in our head about, right? But you have to know what's dangerous and what's not. And it's really easy to see if it's dangerous if it was to be done on an average person in the world and it would be considered a crime, then it shouldn't be idolized. It shouldn't be being practiced. It's okay to think about it. It's okay to do that. And maybe you want to try it, but it shouldn't be like promoted in the webs. It shouldn't be like where people are getting killed in sex all the time. Like you're saying, at what point is it a harm? At what point is slashing somebody? What if they accidentally cut their jugular and they just fucking bleed out?
Well, choking is the big one. Like, a lot of people die each year through being choked to death by their partner. And they say it's, sex game gone wrong. But is it?
Is it murder? I think it's murder.
Yeah.
They were getting off on the fact. That's what I said to this one person. Like, there's girls in the industry who've been abused when they were a child, who've been abused as adults, right? And now they play into those fantasies, those rape fantasies, those things like where they say they want to have a gun held to their head and stuff like that, right? And if your partner is able to stay hard while pretending like they're going to kill you, what if they accidentally kill you because they are playing into that role so much? That is murder. And people do go to jail for that. Because unfortunately, your partner's dead. She cannot say, oh, I wanted him to do that to me, actually.
Yeah. No, it definitely raises some big questions.
It just goes back to, depends on who those 12 jurors are that person gets. And hopefully those people who are their jurors have had some rough sex before. Because if they haven't, and if Susie waited until she was married and she's never even sucked her husband's dick, she's going to be like, no way. She could have never wanted to be choked. You killed her maliciously.
Well, and this comes back to how, like, we have to ask, is porn changing sexual behavior? Like, I used to always say it can't be.
And music and culture.
But then when I think about my personal life, I always say to people, like, girls my age, they don't want to be choked. But when I sleep with a young girl, every girl wants me to choke her. So clearly...
Because she's trying to be sexy. She's trying to be what she thinks men want. Just like every other girl.
For me, it's difficult because I hate it. I kind of pretend to do it because I'm so terrified of killing someone by accident. But it's crazy to me.
I've joked to my husband. Yeah, I've joked to my husband and I've said, like, slap me or something, and he can't do it. You know? And I'm not that
I think that's the normal reaction.
Yeah.
Like when a girl said to me to slap her, it's like fake slap. You know?
Yeah,
and they're like,
it takes
what was that?
Kind of
like, I can't do it. Even though I know it turns you on, I can't do it.
Because it all boils down to people needing therapy. We have to be talking about stuff that's happening to us in healthy ways, because sex is not the way to heal these traumas. Experimenting in the bedroom to replay fantasies, to try and change your idea of what happened to you to make it something good, to regain your power, right? That's what they're trying to do. Like, yeah, this happened to me when I didn't want it to, but that's okay because it can happen to me now, and I'm giving people permission so it doesn't bother me. So they can change their view of what happened to them. So maybe they can handle it a little bit better, you know? And we need to be talking about stuff that's happened, stuff that's went wrong, and talking to people who are equipped with knowledge to have those conversations. Our husbands, if they haven't been to therapy, our girlfriends, if they haven't been to school to be a therapist, if they don't have knowledge on these things, it's never going to fix anything. It's just going to be a roller coaster, like, of continuous abuse, of continuous harm. No one's ever truly healing, right? And these fantasies are just going to get more and more dark and more intense. And the more we put it out on the webs, the more young people are going to be thinking that is what's normal. And it's not at all.
I feel like you got a lot off your chest.
I got a lot off my chest. I did. I think we're good. I think we talked about it.
It's good.
Maybe just to remind people that to continue to create their own content.
Yeah, see, this works in America, but in Europe, girls don't make anything on OnlyFans. Most girls are only making like $500 a month.
Because they're not doing it right?
Because
you have to market yourself.
They don't speak English, so it's very difficult for them to attract American and British.
Is there OnlyFans
vendors.
In Europe? People don't use OnlyFans?
Like, the English-speaking countries spend a lot of money on porn, but in non-English speaking countries, so for example, in Italy, it's a wealthy country like America, but people don't have bank accounts. They don't have bank cards, so they can't buy porn. In Germany, everybody uses direct debit. In Hungary, where I am, it's a poor country. So yeah, if you don't speak English and you can't connect with an English-speaking audience, your OnlyFans is fucked.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so we talked about a lot. So like, I don't know, how do you feel in general? Like right now, do you feel that things might change, or can we finish on a positive maybe?
Yeah, I think things will change. I do believe that. I think that this has been one of the biggest conversations that's been had in a while. And I do believe that since a lot of us have said stuff, that people are going to have to implement practice to protect people. And I think they will, because a lot of us are asking for it. So I think that it's going to be better. It's just going to take a little bit of time before obviously it gets tremendously better. But I can say now that the conversations are being had. People are telling me that even when they were going on set, people are talking about what I'm talking about. So, regardless if it takes a long time or a little bit of time, but I think it's going to make a difference. So I'm going to keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I hope you keep doing it too, dude.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. Like, when I posted, I just expected it to be like, okay, everyone agree with me, and then it gets fixed right away. And that was naive. And now I'm thinking, like, yeah, change will happen. It will get better. I don't think we'll get all the changes that we need right now, but
yeah,
I think
eventually
we'll get some of them. Yeah. And
yeah,
I
sure.
don't think we can ever have anything perfect, but so long as some people like you and the other victims that are speaking out keep speaking out, then I think we keep getting improvements. That's how I see it.
We have to realize that we're going to have to keep adapting as time goes on, and we're going to always have to keep correcting and improving what we're doing, because there's going to be more issues that arise. And you know, and there can be excitement and change. It doesn't always have to be so, they're ruining it. They're ruining it. You know, we need to embrace the change.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know if you want to tell people where they can find you and all of that stuff. I know it always feels a bit inappropriate to plug yourself when it's like such a serious topic at the beginning.
I know. I'm like,
I was like, I'm not even promoting my social medias on this one.
moreleahplease.com. They can find all of my links there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking to me, Leah. It's
no, thank you.
Like, for me personally, it felt really good because
my light.
Yeah, for me personally, it just felt really good just to know that it's not, I don't know, it's not just me, shouting into the wind, You're
not. And just because you are shouting in the wind, know the wind is carrying your voice somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody will hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks
so
much.
Might not be everybody.
And I know how hard it is to speak up about these things. So I really appreciate your courage. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate yours. And I hope everything is good and you stay safe.
Yeah, thanks. Take care. Thank you.